design thinking, probably if you're not familiar with this term design thinking, like I was some time back, you wonder what it is. You've got two words, design and thinking. But let's cut to the chase. And what is design thinking? It's basically a problem solving approach that there are two kinds of people in the world, those who see just the problems, and those who seek the solutions to the problem. Because a lot of people come complaining that this is the problem, this is the problem. You hear them out and ask a question. Now, what do you think is the solution to these problems? So, design thinking is that you seek for the solution based on the beneficiary, the user or your client, or the beneficiary of the things that you're working on. Not just that, it encourages innovations and creativity. So many times, we box the people into thinking that this is the only way to do certain things. When I was a kid, somebody asked me a question. If you're already aware, probably you'll be able to answer this, but let me still ask because it's an old thing. Um, Name a mouse with two legs. If you've heard, no, I'm told that you cannot answer. Can they answer back to me? Yeah, I'm sure they'll edit it out. Name a mouse with two legs. No? Okay. Have you heard of Mickey Mouse? Oh, and let me ask another question. Name a duck with two legs. Donald Duck. All the ducks have got two legs. So what just did I do? I boxed you into thinking in one direction and captivated your mind in just the animation. And then you got lost somewhere there. And so that's what the world does to you. That's what the people do to you. That's what sometimes the culture does. But we need to think out of the box, think there can be many different solutions and come up with the best one. So encourages innovation and creativity. You may be doing the same thing, but in such a different way that it becomes a better experience for the end user. Also, it is iterative process. What that means is it's repetitive. You keep doing it. It's not something design thinking that you have done it once and it's forever. Because trust me, I was not born with the cell phones, but you are. So things are very different now. So once it is done, something is out, it can be a repetitive process, this design thinking. And it includes empathy, and to define it again and to ideate, that means to come up with the ideas, come up with the prototype, and then test. This is what design thinking is. And the importance is, the main idea is to put the user, the beneficiary, the client in the center of everything, because the whole thing is actually to be designed keeping that end user in mind. If that person is satisfied with what we are offering, whether it's a service or a product or a social innovation or anything. So the user is at the center and it bridges the gap between user needs and business goals. Like we have a business goal, but then the user needs something. So it has to be narrowed as much as possible, and it fosters the culture of innovation, as I said. So empathy, the design thinking process, what it is, we can zero it down to these 5 elements: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And then repeat this process over and over till you get the desired end of it. We know the term empathy, what empathy means, right? To put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, to be imagine what it would be like to be in the shoes of that person. We've all done that, right? Like, how many of you cried when you saw a certain scene in the movie? It made you to cry, right? You did that, right? Let me just do this little exercise with you. I want you to close your eyes. If you want to enjoy this, you need to close your eyes because that's when we begin to imagine better. Okay, all of you. Now you've got the lemon in your hand. Okay, lemon. You've got the knife in your other hand, and you sliced it into two pieces. You took the lemon, half of the other half of the slice, and then you brought it near your mouth, and you squeezed a little bit and got through a few drops of lemon in your tongue. Now, how many of you felt the sour taste? Some of you, right? Even when it wasn't there, you just imagine. We've got the mirror neurons in our brain, and we can empathize. That helps us to put ourselves in that position. If a video comes that somebody is dropping down without a parachute and hit the ground, we feel the pain. It's because we have that capacity which mirror neurons in our brain gives us. Then define, ideate, prototype, and test. We're going to learn this a little more elaborately. Empathize. How do we do that? We talk to people, we communicate with them. Interviews would help. Observations, we observe them and we make journey maps. All that is to gain deep insight into the user experience and their emotions. Once you get that, you define, you frame the problem. What exactly is the problem? Sometimes people keep doing things without know. If you do not know exactly what the problem is, you probably will try to fix different things, but not the thing that is supposed to be fixed. So when you define it, you got to synthesize all the findings from the empathizing phase and create a clear problem statement that this is the issue, and then framing the problem. Then we go to ideate. That means to encourage creativity, explore solutions, as many as you can. And the techniques are brainstorming and mind mapping. I'm sure you might have known what it is. To generate, it's the whole process of defining is to generate ideas. And then develop a prototype that is simple, that is cost effective, that has possible solutions. Focusing on the key features, again, keeping the user at the center of all of this, bringing those ideas to life. If we have the solution, we'll bring it, making a prototype, bringing it to life in some way that this is what it should look like. And then testing it, with the feedback. You've given the person, the real life person, to use your prototype. You're going to take the feedback. Based on the feedback, you refine it. And remember, even if you fail, failure is a learning opportunity. Somebody said, don't call it a failure, call it an education. So failing is a good thing. It tells you that you tried, you took a step, you didn't shut yourself up or close the door. And the more you've failed many times you're educated. Now I know the thousand things that doesn't work. That's an education. I think it was Henry Dunant who said that education is a progressive discovery of our ignorance. So failing is a learning opportunity. Um, Applications of design thinking. There are various other places where we can design, particularly these four: product design, service design, business strategy, and social innovation. These are the places where design thinking can be applied. Now, let's take the real world example of how this design thinking has been applied for good. Now, there are different companies, those who have done that, like PepsiCo, Apple for sure, and IBM. Also, we'll take an example, the case study of Airbnb. Now, Airbnb is, are you familiar with Airbnb? Yeah, this properties, they list it, the individual properties of various people around the globe, they list it on their website so that the people, those who want to have that homely experience, can book it, and use those properties for their vacation. That's Airbnb. Okay, in 2006, 2009, the Airbnb was struggling to grow the user base. They were not making profits. They were not growing. So they implemented design thinking. So how did they do that? Is again empathize. They realized that the poor quality of the photos were deterring potential clients from booking it. People want to go for vacation, they want to have a good property, they want to go and enjoy their holidays, but somehow they are deterred, they are not encouraged because of the low quality photos. So they defined it. Users were unable to visualize the experience of staying in a listed property due to low quality images and poor descriptions. So they define the problem. Then they ideate, came up with the idea to hire professional photographers to take high quality photos of listed properties. Simple. Then they created the prototype. They quickly tested this idea in New York City by photographing some of the listings. That's what they did. And the test they did, the results were immediate, significant increase in bookings, rapid growth of the company. So this example must have given you some idea how it works, you know. And then the outcome of this case study is rather implementing of this design thinking. It transformed Airbnb into a trusted and popular business and worldwide. Today, Airbnb has multi-billion-dollar company with millions of listings across the globe. That's the success. So this is how they implemented design thinking into their business, and so many other companies are doing it. My interest is in social innovation because by heart I'm a philanthropist. So this is how we did it at Heartbeat Foundation. The challenge was repeat offenders at boys observation home. Now you know that I'm a psychological counselor, as my profile was read, and I've been counseling children in conflict with the law. Children, in a legal term, those who fall into the category of under 18. When they commit certain act which is not legal, they are called as in conflict with the law. So the challenge was the repeat offenders were there. Not just they came once, but they came again and they came again and they came again. So the streak of offenses were just kept on going. So how we applied this design thinking is to empathize with the children in conflict with the law. With the over the years, with interviews and talking to them and observing them, we realize that they mostly come from an underprivileged background. They are dropouts, and the reason basically is the absence of the father figure. They either don't have father who, who died, or didn't have a functional father, probably a drunkard who doesn't care what's going on in the house, the broken families. So this made us to empathize with them, then define juveniles actually were the victim of their environment. What you hear in the stories, in the movies, or in the newspapers is just the one case or a two case, and then you make the whole image of juveniles accordingly. But the reality is very much different. So juveniles were the victim of their environment, and what the environment we empathized with. So came up with the idea of follow-up counseling, community work, and employability program. So what the follow-up counseling is that once they get the bail, they got to meet us every 15 days, at least for the period of 3 months. So we could get the judge to order it for every juvenile in conflict with the law. When this started happening, we need to engage them in the community work because that fosters empathy. Because the reason why people commit wrong is because they are not able to empathize with others. So fostering empathy and employability programs so they can make their own living out of it. Prototype is follow-up counseling session was initiated and pilot batch of employability program was commenced. And we also uh, allowed them to get into the community work, rather encouraged them. The results were immediate, significant decrease in repeat offense as many got employment after the employability training. So these are some of the clippings, the shots of the newspaper. People, those who were into, because of the counseling and the training, they became self-dependent. So we provided them employability training. We also included them in the community work. Like once they turn 18, like we encourage them to do blood donations, join us for the roti seva, even join us for the flood relief. We had a flood relief. We had flood near Gwalior, so even they were encouraged to donate if they can, if they were working anywhere. So to foster this empathy, uh, thinking about others, and also this talks about employability program. This talks about we just send them to Delhi. Some of these to have a career in in cooking, in become a baker or something in the world's one of the most reputed skill training academy run by a probably multi-million dollar company. They could grant a request to train them and then also enroll them in the company as the employees. So the impact was transformation of boys observation home into a rehabilitative place, you know, and because of the now the number has increased, like over the last 12 years, more juveniles were counseled and more were made employable and placed. So the challenges that comes is that where people box us, the resistance to change, we just want to go with the flow, we don't want to change, or balancing creativity with practicality and ensuring diverse perspective. These are the challenges that comes as an obstacle for design thinking. But in the end, I would like to reiterate that it's a very powerful tool. It's more of a mindset as much as the process. And you need to think big. It makes us think big, start small, and repeat that process often. So, with that, I conclude this talk on design thinking. Thank you so much for listening to me carefully.